Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Today's upload is out of Alaska, and it is technically the last frontier that we have. There are massive swaths of land that have not been touched by man yet. And this is where one of this experience happened. And I talked a little bit about in last night's second half that there is evidence that something big did go down in 2015 in Alaska, because our president, Barack Obama, at the time, had gone up there, and in a guise of going to look at glaciers. So that's not why he went there. That was what was told to the public by public affairs. Now, I had been talking to this guy for about 4 months now, and he was real hesitant to even talk to me. He had heard Victor. He had heard a couple of things that Victor had shared. He had heard me talk about getting or receiving emails from the CIA, ucia.gov, cia.gov, and I said, hey, if anybody ever wants to see those emails, they are in the community post. Scroll down, and they are there. A normal person, a civilian, no matter who you are, cannot create a .gov email address. You can't. So I have evidence of me being sent these emails from the CIA telling me to stop talking about Victor, stop talking to Victor, just stop. And this one guy that did work with Victor he went by the handle of Silvertail. It's all in the posts. You can see it. He saw it and realized, holy shit, you can't create a .gov email address. And I was like 8,000 subscribers. That's it during this time. When Victor even reached out to me, I was happy where the channel was, because as long as I have a few people watching, I'm happy. I enjoy doing this. I don't do it for any other reason except I truly enjoy learning and talking with you guys. I think this is the greatest thing since, I'm blessed in a sense to meet all of you and to learn everything from you guys. So, and to meet all new people like this guy. I cannot even get this guy an alias. That's how sensitive his information that he shared with me is. I'm going to tell you that there is a couple of different government agencies involved, and he showed me his identification. I'm not going to tell you, because if I even remotely share the agency he worked with or worked for, they would know who it was. There is a few military bases up in Alaska. Fort Wainwright is the main one where a lot of this comes out of. So he could have worked there. Homeland Security was involved, so he could have been there. And the CIA was involved, so he could have been working for the CIA. Other than that, that's all I can share. Now, I just told you in 2015, Barack Obama was in Alaska in September. This experience went down in August. And what occurred remained top secret, sensitive material, even after POTUS showed up at Fort Wainwright to look and see with his own eyes what was going on. Now, there is an area in Alaska. There's two lakes up there called White Lake. And the one that I am going to share where the information and where a lot of this came out of, is right above, just kind of north of the gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve. There's a lot of shit that goes on there. And the coordinates would be 68.342277, comma, hyphen 15.2.663354. If you look at this lake on the map, on Google Maps, it glows a blue color. The other lakes do not glow a blue color. This one does. It's a very strange anomaly. I don't know if it has anything to do with what went on there. I asked him, and he said he doesn't know. But when I told him, hey, when we were talking about all this, and I said, hey, if you scroll out, this lake seems to glow a different color. Is that why it's called? Because I had found the other White Lake, and he's like, no, it's north of that. Now, it's just north of Chandler Lake. So, August of 2015, the beginning of, maybe even the end of July. Now, I was not aware of this, but the United States and other countries around the world, mainly us, we have drones and we have satellites and other kind of devices that cruise around the globe and look for radiation markers. Why? To keep the American population safe, to keep us secure from a nuclear war, nuclear holocaust, whatever, a dirty bomb. So, apparently, in either late July or early August, there was a ping and a radiation marker was found in this area of a nuclear radiation signature. And that's what they go and look for, these signatures. And it was in and around the area of the gates of the Arctic National National Park and Preserve and this White Lake region. Now, apparently it wasn't a very large marker or signature, but it was large enough to alert Homeland Security and also alert the CIA. FBI could have gotten involved, but because I said, well, wouldn't the FBI be involved because it was on Homeland? And he said, not usually. Usually these missions of looking at any kind of radiation signature falls under the Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and when Department of Defense is involved, then the CIA would fall under that. And I said, oh, okay. Because usually the CIA doesn't really work in the States, but I mean, yeah, okay. So the signature's seen, and it really sends a lot of attention towards this area. Now, there is Ellison Air Force Base and Fort Wainwright are right in that area in Fairbanks. And apparently some drones were launched from both bases to see what exactly was going on. They didn't want to just blindly send any kind of military team or, some soldiers up there to see, possibly even the Alaskan National Guard. They wanted to figure out what the hell was really going on. I mean, you're talking about a nuclear radiation signature almost dead center of Alaska. So as these drones are flying over this area, live feed is getting shot back, and all of a sudden you get a couple of very excited murmurs and people, hey, someone needs to get over here and look at this. We need some high command over here. We need some upper echelon in the military. We need people here. What the hell are we looking at? And as this is being recorded and stills being taken, what they see are three huge figures kind of walking through this region where this nuclear radiation signature was. They are judging on the drone footage that is getting fed back to them, and using kind of real-time measurements and such. They estimated their heights to be somewhere between, at that very moment, somewhere between 13 to 15 feet in height. And there was three of these monstrous humanoid-like creatures. And they appeared to be fighting amongst themselves, but also walking amongst themselves. And it was a very, very strange kind of sighting to be seen. Immediately, the people in charge of this operation contact Homeland Security. Then Department of Defense is contacted, because this is something that is, not really seen all that often. I imagine they see some shit, but, nothing like this is seen every day. And at this point, they've got to get a couple of people from Homeland Security and some whoever in the Department of Defense. Well, what people are sent up from the CIA and Homeland Security. Now, when they get there, about a day has passed since this footage is filmed and these stills are taken. They've kind of lost sighting or where location of these, because at one point, one of the drone operators was told to lower one of these drones down, and these are not small drones. These he said that they were using drones about the size of, a good sized gun case, not as big as a car or an SUV, but you're not picking this thing up, and they dropped it down because they wanted to see if they could get any, besides a top shot of these things, a facial recognition, because they're like, what the fuck are we looking at? They spin it around and they're looking and they bring it down. Now, as they do, these things must have heard it, and one of them, the largest one of them, apparently had picked up some sort of boulder and thrown it at the drone. Well, it missed it, so the drone raised up a little bit, and then they did get a picture of its face. And it was very human-like, but almost like an kind of an interbred, interloped, whatever, very, very monstrous-like, but very human-like as well. Eyes were very far apart, and its nose was very broad. Its mouth was kind of misshapen, and this one that they got didn't have what appeared to be a lot of hair on its head. It did, but almost like someone pulled hair out of its head. And as this drone dodged this one, they kind of dropped it down, almost taunting these things. For some reason, they were, thought, hey, let's taunt this thing. And as they bring it down the next time, all of a sudden, it stops working. The drone simply stopped working. They all three turned and looked at it, and the last kind of photo or video that was ever taken from this drone and broadcast back to the base, all three were staring dead at this thing, and it just stopped working. No explanation of why. There was nothing thrown at it. It was just, and it was never recovered. As a matter of fact, the last kind of any kind of photo or video was seeing these things turned and looking at it. They're obviously looking up at it, and then immediately, like seconds later, there is this very bright flash of light, and then instant darkness, and no any kind of signal back to them. They can't see battery life. They can't see any kind of height, altitude, whatever, nothing. It was almost as if it disappeared. Okay? They to this day, as far as he knows, they've never recovered it, even after the mission. Because during that mission, that was part of one of the big reasons why they went up there was, one, to figure out what the fuck these things were and to take them out. Two, to get that drone back. So as he and I are talking, I'm like, well, what was the point of wanting to take them out? They, obviously it did throw a boulder, but it didn't hit it. And, it could have been malfunction, it could have been something, and it could have crashed into a lake. He said if it had crashed into any of these lakes around here, a signal still would have been sent back. We still would have had some sort of homing or beacon on this thing, and we would have gotten it back. But there was nothing after the last still of them staring at it in the video of everything getting very, very bright and then almost like dead space and gone. So at this point, there's a large discussion of what they are going to do about this. Homeland Security is communicating with their higher-ups, Department of Defense communicating with their higher-ups, and eventually POTUS, or our president, Barack Obama at the time, was notified about what had been spotted up in this remote area of Alaska, and also that there was a nuclear radiation signature spotted in the exact same area these three creatures were, as well as a satellite getting downed, or not a satellite, excuse me, a drone getting downed, and no kind of any feedback from that drone. Nothing. They are literally sending drones. They do have satellites that, they are looking at this area, because after that, they can't find these three things. Once these Homeland Security guys and the Department of Defense, CIA, get up there, and they are kind of the mission head, they can't locate them. There is no anything. They're looking at, recent shots from satellites, recent video feeds from these drones, as well as trying to locate where that last drone was. They sent a few drones way above the lowest altitude, or even the highest altitude of this last one, its last location, to see if they could get any kind of recognition or view of this downed drone, and nothing. There was nothing there. So during all of this, the president asks, he's asking questions about, what do you mean, creatures and this and that? What are we talking about? Polar bears, or whatever. He's under the assumption that this is a natural thing that they had spotted, along with quite possibly some sort of Russian involvement. Because all he was under the information of, there was 13 to 14 foot creatures, in this radiation signature. Think Alaska, you're thinking big bears, Kodiak, polar bear, whatever. No, this is not any kind of bear. This is not any kind of wildlife native to Alaska, as far as we know, sir. They send him some stills, and his response is, what in the hell am I looking at? Do you think these things pose a danger to the American population. What have we figured out what the cause of this radiation signature is? All right, so that question is asked, is there a threat to the American population? And the response that everyone had at this point is, we really don't know yet. This is, everything that we have shared with you is what we know. And simple response from POTUS or his office was, well, you've got 3 unknown creatures that are traveling in the United States. We don't know who, what they are. There's a nuclear radiation signature in that area. There now is a missing drone. I'd say there is a threat to the American population. Whether it be 1 American or 10,000, there is some sort of threat going on. So, yeah, let's figure this out as quickly as possible. At this point, there is a kind of communication between POTUS, his staff, Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and the upper command of Fort Wainwright. During these kind of engagements and such, there are operations named. And it's interesting because I didn't know anything about this, but when they get together and they brainstorm ideas for names like High Jump or, Blue Book, they don't randomly all have like, I don't know, it's pretty weird how he explained it to me. They'll throw ideas. It almost seemed like a brainstorming thing for a name for this operation rather than, there was more effort put into the freaking naming of the operation than what went down. Not really, but the name of the operation was Operation Burt Reynolds for 2 reasons. Apparently, there was a Burt Reynolds movie named Operation CIA, and the creatures were kind of inbred looking, very large, but still inbred looking, and Burt Reynolds movie Deliverance. So, I mean, Operation Burt Reynolds, okay. They decide, we've got X amount of soldiers here at Wainwright. Let's send them up and let's see if we can at least locate these creatures or whatever they are. And then let's see if we can locate the satellite and if there is some sort of dirty bomb or warhead, whatever. Let's see if we can find the cause of this signature. You've got 3 very large problems. Let's solve them all together. They put a couple teams together based on soldiers they have readily available to them. There's a few doing some winter training, Arctic training, nothing major, because at this point in time, like he had stated previously, there is not a airborne division of the Arctic like there was some 60 years ago. Right now, they're dealing with what they have in place. They get 2 teams, and the response of everything is, all right, we got 3 large issues: missing drone, heat signature, radiation signature, and these very strange, whatever they are, anomalous creatures. And like Victor had said, presidents were aware of these breeding programs. They're not aware of everything, so this must be, you think if you're the president and breeding programs exist, so Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolf, I'm sure during these hunts of other creatures and other things, and even with Dulce, I'm sure they've seen some shit. Strange creatures like this is not something every day, it's not, and it's definitely not the norm. So we got to get this done. We have to get this done. And I'm laughing, like, I snickered because we were talking during all this, and I still can't get over the amount of time and effort and money put into a name of these operations. And he said to me, Jeff, you would be amazed on how much money is spent on just the little bullshit things like that, coming up with that name, that brainstorm of a name, Operation Burt Reynolds. Because there's a movie, 2 movies based on, that you're naming this off of Operation CIA, which I never even fucking heard of, and Deliverance. Anyway, let's get 2 teams up there. 1, to recover the drone. 2, to face head on these 3 creatures. I mean, there's 3. There's 3 of them. We put a good team against them. We shouldn't have an issue, right? So that's what ends up happening. Last known location of that heat signature or radiation signature, it might be an anomalous signature, or it might be because they're still getting it. It's still in that area. We'll send you guys for the drone. We'll send you guys for those things. And you both have 2 missions. Figure out where that radiation signature is coming from. Find the drone. Figure out where the radiation signature is coming from. Kill those monsters. Or subdue and take in if you can. Very big if you can. Because at that point, it was, possibly not detain but kill on sight, whatever. What are you going to do, So they send them up there. Last known location of the satellite, or drone, excuse me, and last known location of these 3 creatures. Now, as they are departing, they get comms over. We've located the 3 creatures. They are now south of where they were. They are in the park preserve. It appears that they are kind of hunkered down, and it looks to be like they are consuming some sort of wildlife. They are eating. There's no fire. They're just sitting and eating something. We don't know exactly what it is. It could be elk, it could be whatever, moose. But they are, subdued right now and resting, apparently. All right, boom. We'll drop these guys off at X marks the spot, and they can truck it in, walk it in, and surprise attack on these things. You guys go and find out where where that drone is. The first instant of sighting these creatures, one stands up and looks. The other two are aware that there is human people, there. Don't bother standing up. They're singing, fighting amongst themselves, eating. But the one that stands up is the one that really looked odd based on the name, the name of everything. Just the one with the lacking of hair, the largest one. And obviously the drone, like I said, had never been recovered to this day, as far as he knows. They get response from the guys, hey, we can't find the drone. It is nowhere to be seen. We also don't have this signature. That one stands up. They are now figuring out, this is where the signature is coming from. It's coming from these three creatures. They're very low per each one, but when they are together, it is very strong. You need to, right now, we've figured it out, you need to, at all costs, take these things down. Take them down and try like hell to not have any casualties on our end. The one stands up and it sees everybody, and instantly their firearms do not work. They jam. For some reason they jam. And for another 2 soldiers end up missing. They are on comms. This one is they are engaged, but not for 5 minutes. There's a stare down. They have tried to shoot, but cannot. This thing has not moved. It's just staring at them. Is letting out this kind of low, humming kind of growl. Very low frequency, but you can hear it. They can hear it over the comms, and it's freaking the soldiers out. They realize, hey, we're missing 2 guys. We don't know where they are. Obviously, they didn't run away. There's no place to run. We're in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. So they are told to meet up, disengage, and get out of there as quickly as possible. We need now to find these other 2 soldiers and figure out what's going on, because you guys can't, fire your rifles or any kind of firearm. They meet up with the second team, the one that's looking for the drone. They are about 2 to 3 miles away from last known location of these creatures. As they meet, they are told, check your rifles, make sure your rifles are active and can work. They do. At that point, they do. And a couple minutes later, they get a response from the 2 missing soldiers. They're about a mile or, little more than a mile away from the initial sighting of those creatures. They can't explain where they went. They don't know. They have no recollection of what happened. The last thing they remember is they had just walked in on these 3 creatures. They see the 2 fighting amongst themselves for food. There's some sort of dead animal that they're fighting over, and the one stands up, and that's the last thing they recall. And then they are, a mile and some away. Those two are told to wait. They're sending a helicopter to fly in and get them, because they want to figure out what happened, to them. They don't want them involved in anything as of right now, because there's no explanation of where they went. They're looking at satellite feeds of this. They can see what's going on. And it was almost like they were there 1 minute and then they were gone the next. There's no flash, there's no nothing. They were there and gone. They get back. They're very sick. What appears to be almost similar to radiation poisoning. They're hospitalized, and he believes that both did die. And he said, simple is, you would be surprised at how many U.S. soldiers die in non-combative missions and such, and the population doesn't ever hear about it, because if we did hear about it, we wouldn't have soldiers. It's just a very high percent, not 90-10, but higher than 1% is high. 1% of soldiers passing away in non-combative missions and whatever is high, especially in our home soil. So they are suffering from severe radiation poisoning. These guys go in, and their firearms are working. They engage these creatures, and they start to shoot them. Nothing happens for some reason. Like, it's almost like there is a door opened. That was my cat. Almost like there was no, not bulletproof, but for some reason there was something there that wouldn't allow their rounds to affect or kind of cause any damage to these creatures. Everyone is told, pull back. We're sending, QR team to get you the hell out of there right now. We've got to figure this out right now. Immediately, even before these guys are back, Command already has a solution to all of this, and that solution is a dark team to come in, not Navy SEALs, and pretty much soldiers that don't exist to the regular Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Just, they are outside of the box. These guys are the best of the best, and they have the best. They have the best weapons. They have the best training. They wait until they can get together, or get this team together and up into Alaska. Apparently they're coming from within the United States, within the lower 48, closer to the southern area. Once they get up there, they are told and briefed about this mission, and they go forth. There's a high concentration of fight going on. Obviously, these creatures don't have weapons of that caliber, but the soldiers are pretty much ripping the shit out of these guys. They came in on a sneak attack. The creatures weren't even aware that they were there as of yet. It was a quick engagement. There was not your typical firepower used. They used some heavy duty shit on these guys. As they are cleaning up the mess, a helicopter comes in, and another QR team comes in to pick these guys up and to figure out how they're gonna transport these other creatures. And they end up getting them back to Fort Wainwright. Now, this is where the details come into play. The radiation was coming from these creatures. At one point, as they're flying, they are dead. But at one point, the helicopter that is transporting these things underneath in a cargo net stops. The motors stop. Everything stops. The electric, everything. Just, they get it going, and they do get back to Wainwright safely. Now, when they land, there are some government scientists, government people there that are very interested in what has transpired, because right now you've got 3 creatures that have a radiation signature on them. You've had 2 soldiers disappear and reappear. You have a missing satellite. You have a firefight that went so extremely wrong that you cannot explain why bullets were not hitting these things. There was nothing visible. It wasn't like there was a imaginary dome over these things and bullets were just flinking back. No, they were actually watching, bullets hit these things, but not. It doesn't make sense to me, but I wasn't there. I didn't see it in real time. Almost as if when a bullet hit them, they healed instantly, like that. As they are dead, and still that healing ability for some reason still works. They land. It doesn't bring them back to life, but any kind of wound on their body is healed. 12 and a half, 13 feet. The largest was 14 and a half feet in height. The first 2 ranged somewhere between 850 to 875 pounds, somewhere in that area, both of the 12 and a half to 13. Doesn't remember the exact weight for both. And the largest is, I'll never forget that one. It was 14 and a half feet in height. So 2 feet taller than the shortest one and 1.5 feet taller than the second tallest one. It was just absolutely massive. 1,285 pounds. And they were definitely humanoid. They did have 2 arms, 2 legs, walked upright. The only thing that separated them from us would be the 6 toes, 6 fingers on each hand. All had red hair. and all wore strange light coverings. 2 were definitely male, but the largest, the 14.5-foot one, appeared to be both male and female. It had these two, or this one creature had both sex parts of female and male. It lacked in breasts, but it was very, very strange thing to see. They had red hair, sporadic one. The one that did have both male and female organs was the one with the sporadic red hair, but the other 2 did have red hair. They were violent, very violent towards each other, and they did get along as well, which was very strange. So they get them back. His job's done at this point. But he's got to stay and figure out exactly, what kind of, if anything, danger is posed to the American population. Where did these things come from? Are they alien? Are they, something that was overlooked by science? So, mission complete. He's got to figure out, basically what, where, why, when everything happened the way it did. The scientists are there. He doesn't know exactly what happened to these bodies afterward because his job is done, essentially, or was done. Homeland Security, CIA are set to pull out. And, little information trickles here and there. He's not aware of the drone ever being located, or if those 2 guys did die of nuclear poisoning, radiation poisoning. But he said that he really truly believes that whatever those things were, that if that radiation did come from them, quite possibly these were genetic kind of creations. Not by human beings, quite possibly by alien. The satellite, did it go into a portal? Did those 2 guys get into a portal and be transferred away? And why was it those 2 guys? And, well, he believes that the reason why it was no one else except those 2 soldiers is both were red-headed men. Could it have been that these things targeted those guys because it was something similar to what they had? He doesn't know. He thinks quite possibly that these things did come from a portal, that they were genetically created by the alien agenda or whatnot. Alien agenda, fallen angels. I honestly, my view on that is I do believe that, some of these creatures in these deep underground military bases, like they'll say these reptilian-like creatures, I do wholeheartedly believe the Bible tells us that the fallen angels, the fathers of these Nephilim, some resembled reptile-like creatures. It makes sense to me there. And then if those guys did go through a portal, would there be radiation poisoning? Yeah, well, sure. You're traveling to some other plane of existence and then coming back. Does that have something to do with the Montauk Project, Philadelphia experiment? The Eldridge, does it have anything to do with that? I do believe that the Eldridge and some of the soldiers that were on that boat did perish from radiation sickness. If I'm not mistaken, I'm like not an expert on anything. I'm just sharing information that was shared with me. So then POTUS comes in. And I guess from what he said, that, and what I did look into after, was that he was up there and up in Seward and a couple other places in Alaska to examine these creatures and glaciers melting. That very essence of a government cover-up, right up to where POTUS is. So you've got cases like Tony Aaron's Amber Miller, where it's local and county government covering it up, and now you have this. And ironically enough, this took place August of 2015, and Obama is one of, if any, presidents to travel to Alaska, to this remote region and see, it's to me, that when he said, explain why after all this went down, that 2-3 weeks later, our president is in this area and on that base observing the creatures behind, radiation suits and shit like that. Let's look at these things. Let's figure it out what they are. Just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. And I'm with him. I'm with him on that. Because, if you think about what Kirk had shared with us, Kirk is that young man who, younger than me, so he's a young man, but he tragically took away from his family by ending his pain, which is sad. And I don't think anyone should ever do that. There's enough help out there. But I'm not in his shoes. I wasn't. So, the shit that he saw, why wouldn't there be radiation? Why wouldn't there be some sort of, I don't know. It's fucking insane. And then to have POTUS be there 2 to 3 weeks after it happened. Okay. Project Burt Reynolds. How fucking insane is our government now? And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant. Keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events, they have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.